Are you listening? Are you watching? You know what it is, not just boxing. From the canvas to the madness, sit down and get yourself locked in. Are you listening? Are you watching? You know what it is, not just boxing. From the canvas to the madness, sit down and get yourself locked in.
As a fan, it was frustrating, and even just as a boxing fan or a neutral, like, it wasn't right. I think the ref shouldn't have got involved, really.
At that pivotal moment as well.
Yeah.
But that's what they do. If they have to speak to the fighters about something, they will do it at the beginning of the round generally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially if it happens towards the end of the last round, like they'll give the corners obviously the minute to service and talk to the boxer. Next round starts, bell rings. It's like, okay, time out. Now's that time to address it. It was just unfortunate timing for us that it was the.
That was the moment.
That was the moment we felt it was swinging our way. That's all it is. It's just an unfortunate situation. Obviously, I don't feel the ref's done it on purpose or there's any malice behind it. Like, you can look into those things quite a lot, but it was just one of those things. Next time, it could be in our favour. Do you know what I mean? So boxing swings and roundabouts, man. You learn that as you go along.
Yeah, and also I think Jack did get his second wind as well. He was looking light on his feet. He recovered well.
Yeah, because after 8, it was pretty even. Mm-hmm. So, like they call it, the championship rounds 9 to 12, which are so pivotal in a championship fight, especially at that level. Jack came on, you know, he got his second win, and I could just see differences like in his approach. Like, he came out in those late rounds, and his jab was he just had that intent behind his jab where Isaac was pushing his shots. Mm-hmm. And I thought, do you know what, he's going to finish this fight. You know, he's going to finish strong, because once you get past a certain barrier in that ring, you know, you tend to be able to go the whole way, and credit to him, he did. You know?
Yeah. I'm glad that you said about how the psychology, you can lose a fight before you even get in the ring.
Yeah.
That seems like such a big importance that a lot of coaches may not even understand themselves. So it's nice to hear you say that.
Yeah.
How would you try and sort of guide a fighter before a fight? Everyone's different, obviously, with how they approach it. Yeah. Do you try and guide them the best you can to be the best shape mentally?
Yeah, you know what? On fight week, all the hard work, all the physical stuff's it's done. So for me, as the fight approaches, the way I say it to the fighter is like, look, as the fight approaches, it becomes less physical, more about the mental. So, you know, that week that they're in the fight hotel or they're tapering down in the gym, it's more about feeling good, being happy, making the weight safely, a lot of positive visualization, which I don't think gets done probably as much, but like that imagery in your head of, you know, what do you want the outcome to look like? What do you want to do in the ring? Even the ring walk, you know, so that's really powerful in terms of the psychology leading into a fight, and it becomes more about the psychology and mental side than the physical side. And that's how I sort of manage my fighters through it, in the last few days and hours in the build up to it.
Do you do the same with the amateurs as well?
Yeah, do it same. It's obviously a little bit different where you kind of meet up with them on the day. You don't spend the days leading up to it with them, but with the amateurs, it's like on the day. Try not to give them too much advice as well. Like I've seen it in the past where it's like coaches non-stop talking about the tactics and, you know, the opponent and what they want of the boxer hours before. It's too much. Like your fighter wants to be comfortable, and there's a real fine balance there. So try not to overcoach and just give them little pockets of advice throughout the day. But then as it approaches, you know, you start the warm up. That's when you can dine in a little bit more and go over what you want them to do and stuff like that. But I think don't underestimate the value of keeping your fighter happy and relaxed in the build up to a fight. It's really important.
A happy fighter is a dangerous fighter.
100%, yeah, like they say. But it's true. You know, if it goes the other way, like we were saying, talking earlier, like you can lose a fight in the changing room, you know, just by sort of not getting that balance right in terms of physical and mental. So it is important. It goes back to knowing your fighter as well, like knowing them, their mental makeup, their character, knowing what to say, when to say it.
So you've just started the process to be part of the England squad coaching, is that correct?
Yeah, so I applied and I thought, do you know what, probably taking on too much, but I do love coaching and I've got a strong bond with the amateurs because that's where I started. And I just enjoy the setup. You know, England Boxing got a great setup. They're very structured, they're very organised, they've got good people behind it now at national level. And you know, I applied. So the way it works is they put you on a 6-month coaching development phase where you shadow coaches, you help out in national squads, you have an input, and that's where I am. So I'm a development coach get to work with the national squads from junior, youth, senior, and I've done a few camps now all over the country, and it's great fun, and it's just great to be part of kind of being part of that next generation of talent and having a small input. So I enjoy it.
And you've got a lot of talent in the gym. Do you want to list off, I don't know, it's going to be horrible to say this, do you want to list off just a few fighters that you got?
In the gym, yeah, so we're at NJB Boxing Gym in Brixton, and we've got good kids from amateur to pro. So we've got some good amateurs. One that's just joined us called Blair. He's an elite, boxes at elite level, 54 kilo kid, and a few weeks after he joined us, literally a few months ago, we put him in the Capital Cup, won gold there, boxing 2 good kids at 54 kilos, so he won that title, and his goal is to go on to box in the national championships next year, sort of March time, going into April. He's reached a national final in the past. He's only had 14 bouts, so as soon as he told me that, I was kind of like, who's this kid like? And he boxed for Hooks, so he was at a good club before, but with considering the amount of experience he's had to where he's got to at that weight, I was really impressed, and I can see why, because he's got a very good mentality. He listens, he's very coachable, tricky southpaw. So he's got a lot going for him, 23 years old. So he's just joined the gym. Obviously people know maybe a little bit more about Viv Parsons, standout amateur. I had her since 12 years old, she's now 20. And we've won everything together from junior, youth, senior national titles. She won the GB 3 Nations last year, and she's just broken through to the GB team. So she's on there, she goes there bi-weekly. And great for her just to be part of that journey from the beginning. So it's come at a good time, because sometimes you need a change of environment and a step up in opposition and challenge, and that's exactly what GB will give her now. She's already travelled with the England team last season, went to Croatia, Denmark, Spain, and boxed for England there and did very well. So yeah, that's where she's at.
Did you see that potential in her when she was 12 years old?
Do you know what? She wasn't, and she won't mind me saying this, but she wasn't the most naturally talented boxer that you've seen from that age. Sometimes you look at young people and think, that kid's got it. They just need direction and development and experience. But Viv came from a judo background, so it took me a while just to kind of break her into that boxing stance and that style, and to get a little bit more elusive. And what separated her, actually, that I did notice early on, was her mindset. She actually lost her first bout, and she was in the gym the Sunday morning the next day. And I thought, do you know what? She didn't tell me she was turning up. She just walked in the gym, first one in the gym, and I looked at her and smiled, and she looked at me and smiled back as if to say, I know. And I know. And I thought, do you know what? Ever since then, I knew, do you know what? I've got a champion on my hands. With that mentality and her age and her just willingness to want to improve,
I love that, because also a lot of people listening, not many people are naturally talented or skilled. So when you see someone put in that work, reflect on their loss and get straight back in the gym, it's so nice to see that. Look at what she's done already in just 8 years, you say she's
8 years. Yeah. She's done a lot, in the amateurs, and now really it's kind of like international level, try and break through to a major, and then obviously go pro maybe in the next sort of 24 months. That's the kind of roadmap for her. But she's got so many options, and it will be ultimately up to her. And she's always asking for advice, but we know what path we're on with Viv. But yeah, the talent versus skill formula is an interesting one, because like you say, you've got some kids got natural, or people got natural talent in certain areas, and you've got others that have to develop that skill over time. And the two are interlinked, but they are different. If you've got both of them, you're quite lucky, and with hard work added to that and commitment and a good team, it's a recipe for success. But Viv definitely had the skill developed over time. She had a lot of the right mental attributes to go with it as well. She was naturally always strong and fit for her weight and age as well. Like I said, coming from a combat experience background. So yeah, she had a lot going for her. So we got other kids in the gym that are coming through. We got Jersey, who's a girl who's like the next kind of Vivian Parsons, if you like, who's started, who does have a little bit more natural technical ability than at her age. So that'd be interesting to see how that pans out, because you need the mentality to go with it. And her brother actually boxes for us as well, E10, so first siblings to box for the gym. And yeah, obviously we'll get onto the pros, but we do have a whole sort of pro set up here now as well. So we do it all.
My name is Dennis McCann, professional boxer for Frank Moore and MTK Global. This is Fortress Boxing. A lot more protection, it's a no-brainer around your thumbs, around your knuckles, around your wrist, that's exactly where I have the problems at. They're very compact, so I feel like I'm punching hard with them on as well. And I feel like when you got sparring 14, 16 ounce gloves, the smaller wraps can't really. They're too small for the gloves. That makes sense. So these are a bit bigger, and they're getting the gloves a bit more. They're making them more compact.
1, 2, hook, go.
Do you find it hard going from teaching amateurs to switching to the pros, because it is completely different game? Do you sometimes, maybe 1 hour you're doing a session, you know, for whoever's up and coming, kids, juniors, and then you've got Isaac walking in the door and it's like specific?
It is different. Like what I do now, I'm lucky enough to be blessed with a great team of coaches. So, you know, we've got coaches Charles, Russell, you know, Malik, Connor, like the list goes on, Patrick, and they all help to run those amateur sessions. So in terms of like the junior sessions, we have lead coaches that do that, and I tend to work more with the elite boxers that I just mentioned, the elite amateurs. So I like to train boxers one-to-one now, more so, in order to really sort of tailor their program, get the best out of them. But yeah, it's obviously a different sort of system. You're boxing 3-minute rounds compared to like 12 rounds. So you have to train them differently, but that's also part of the fun and challenge that I enjoy as a coach, is like laying all their plans out and what's needed for them as individuals. And you know, there's no one size fits all as a coach. I don't believe in that philosophy. You know, my philosophy has always been, okay, who have I got in front of me? What are their strengths? What are their work-ons? How can I get the best out of that athlete? What is it they need? And like I said, for me, that's the funnest part. So a kind of like one size fits all approach takes that away, and never really understood it, but yeah, that's how we manage it. You know, they all come in, they've all got their separate times. I've got Coach Connor who helps me with the pros, and like I said, a whole team of other coaches that help with the amateurs. So we're quite structured here in what we do, and we put everyone in the right place to make sure that the gym's thriving and carrying on. You know, we started in 2014 in a sports hall upstairs, putting together a mobile ring and bags, and I had to do that 3 times a week as a volunteer for 3.5 years. A lot of work. But we managed to build up the club slowly. A year later, in 2015, we had our first amateur boxer compete for the club and win on a Balham ABC show. I'll never forget that. And that was my first time in a corner. I was 25.
Who was that?
Who was the boxer?
Yeah.
Notjustboxing Okpako was his name. Yeah, he was a converted southpaw. He went on, only had a handful of amateur bouts, but he was our first. And when we won it, I felt like, do you know what? We've gone clear here. It was an amateur bout in Balham, you know, in a sports hall, and it was just, you know, it takes you back, because that's kind of what the sport's about, you know, the amateur grassroots, you know, that's the spirit of the sport right there, and that's why I still go back to it even now, and I like to have a handle on it, even though we've got a small stable of pro boxers and they keep me busy enough, but I do enjoy the kind of pure side of amateur boxing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now obviously with the England coaching, you're trying to adapt to international skills. You know, boxing a Russian or a Ukrainian is very different to the English style. So how's that been, sort of learning and listening off other coaches? Is there certain things that fighters should be guided when they're going there? Yeah,
it's been fun, because you do learn about other nations and their style, and you kind of realise that, you know, all nations do adopt their own particular style. A lot of the Eastern Bloc countries, you know, fight differently from like the South American countries, and it's just interesting to learn about it and how you would adapt against that. So at international level, they kind of teach, in England, we teach our boxers to, you know, sort of prioritise a particular tactic and style that we know through research and history works in their favour in terms of what judges look for. So if you're boxing in Europe, I can tell you that they're very much like the aggressive, come forward, cut the ring, double attack, so you go and go again type of style, as opposed to a slick back foot boxer. So that's what they're told, and going into those competitions. And if you're boxing at that level as an amateur, you're expected to be able to adapt and apply different styles. So, you know, that whole element's been fun, and it's always an eye-opener just for the coaches and the boxers, you know.
That's so important, because also everyone says the amateur's your apprenticeship before you go pro. Yeah. Having that experience before you turn over puts you in such good stead.
100%.
It's I think it's invaluable. Like it's a no-brainer. But when you get the people that have gone pro that haven't had the amateur background, that have done really well, there's a few fighters out there who have done brilliantly. I think even like Fabio Wardley came from like a white collar background.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see how they've adopted the pro style and how they can beat some of the best amateurs that have turned over.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's so interesting. From a boxing fan perspective, you're trying to piece together.
Yeah, that's the thing in boxing, there's no kind of like A plus B equals C kind of formula, it's like, and again, that's part of the sport that makes it fun. It is unpredictable, and it is how you transition and adapt, whether you're an amateur or pro with experience or no experience. Like, just to reverse that, you've had, like you said, you've had experienced amateurs that have turned over, that have struggled, that haven't gone and reached the heights maybe you'd expect them to. And I think everyone's just again, it goes back to what I was saying, you have to treat every boxer, athlete as an individual. What works for one might not work for the other, but generally speaking, 100% I believe the more amateur bouts you have, the more experience you have as an amateur, keeping that fun element to it, getting as much experience, boxing as many different styles. If you can break through to the national team and then international boxing, even better. And we've got a couple there that are there now. And I believe it, like you said, it will put them in good stead when they do turn over to the pros, as long as they transition correctly. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the coach's role, to make sure they do transition and they transition the right way, and they take enough time to do that, and they don't just go from one to the other, because they are different. And that's the way we do it.
It's nice to hear you say as well how it's good to have different environments and different gyms, because there's a lot of coaches out there that would want to just keep them for themselves from start to finish, when it might not be beneficial. Because sometimes the coaches, it's more about the coach than it is the boxer in their mind, whereas the way you're speaking, it's all about the boxer and their progression. So as you can see on the amateur circuit, there's a lot of coaches out there that sometimes do think about themselves before what's in front of them, like whether it's, whether they mean to or not, but it's nice to hear that.
100%. As a coach, you have to be selfless. Like, you put your athlete first, what's best for them. Like I mentioned an example there with Viv, the wrong thing for me to do would be to try and keep her and say, no, you're going to box here and we're going to reach. She needs a change of environment. She's been doing the same journey. She lives in Brixton, so the same walk to the gym, the same sort of venue, and for a long time. And she's at that stage, like I said, she needs that change of environment. That's going to elevate her. That's going to give her that extra bit of motivation and different environment and challenge. Whether that's environment or competition, it's really, really important. So you put your boxer athlete first, give them what they need, and also empathy, be understanding. If they do come to you with something, I think a lot of coaches sometimes shut off to that and not sort of receptive or open to it, or take it the wrong way. It's like, look, they're the ones getting in the gym, getting in the ring. They're the ones sort of putting themselves at that risk, and we know the pros carry more of an element of risk than the amateurs, but still, you're still getting in there, you're still throwing punches, so they have to be happy, they have to be content, they have to feel they're in the right environment, and all elements of their training are working for them. And that's why we encourage that open level of communication between us and the athlete. We want to talk, and all this kind of goes back to what I was saying about bringing, my role as a coach is to bring the best out of my athlete. So in order to do that, you don't just come to the gym, train, and then compete. There's a lot more around that. Mm-hmm. Do they feel they're getting what they need? Are you getting what you need out of them? It's a two-way relationship, and that comes through just open levels of communication. So again, that's never to be underestimated.
It's an absolute pleasure to have Gymfluencers on board as a sponsor for Season 5 of the Notjustboxing podcast. They've been supporting us since we were on 10,000 followers. If you have over 1,000 followers and you like to showcase your health and fitness journey, or if you're an up-and-coming boxer who likes making content, you can receive free products in return for just the story. You can also work on paid collabs where you set your own rates. They've worked with the likes of C4, Jimmy's Iced Coffee, and Skinny Food Co., and the list goes on. If you want to hit them up, use the code NJB to get started today. And boxing in London, compared to the rest of the country, is so much more difficult. The experience, and you'll have a fight of a losing record in London. Yeah. That could be the next best thing. I think a lot of people that are maybe watching that don't understand amateur boxing, you have got tough fights from your first fight, especially in London based. Like, it's pretty much the hub of boxing in amateurs. It's densely populated. Anywhere you go, you're going to have a hard run for your money. It's never going to be smooth compared to, without disrespecting anyone, when you go to the smaller gyms where they haven't got much competition and they're maybe the star of their gym and there's a few people, you can see the difference in when there's someone having constant hard sparring, travelling around London and being on all these shows.
Yeah, you can tell the difference. And like, there used to kind of be a conception that if you, in a national championship, if you become the London champion and you win the London rounds and you go on, you're kind of seen as the favourite to win it. And I can see where that would come from because of, you know, what you're just saying there about the level of competition in London. But now, through my experience, you know, you look at other parts of England and it's competitive everywhere, you know, like especially like the up north, and you know, you've got good, sometimes even unknown gyms where they're producing kids and you think, okay, where have they come from? And they burst on the scene every season. So, you know, the good thing is that amateur boxing's in a good position. I think nationally there's more gyms now than there has been in recent years, and I think the sport's thriving, especially in the female division. The female side of boxing, you know, it used to kind of be male dominated and it was a new thing to bring girls into the sport, but you're seeing it now where it's, you know, it's seen as the norm, which it should be. It's not male and female boxing, it's boxing. You're getting female only tournaments now as well, you know, the Golden Girls in Sweden, you're getting the Winter Box Cup over here, which we've done a few times, and they're just great. They're absolutely rammed, you know, full of talent and full of competition. You know, so yeah, we're in a good place. I spoke about where we are sort of nationally, but that's slowly starting to trickle down now as well. And there's a lot of competition. You know, I was at a few recent camps with England, you know, like Free Nations sort of prep camps and stuff like that. And there's like several boxers going for that one spot. You know, all fighting for that one spot to get chosen to go and represent England against Scotland and Wales, and that's healthy. You know, that's what you need, that element of competition. So we're in a good place.
So let's talk about the pros. First of all, when did you get your pro license, and what made you want to take on pros?
Do you know what, I got my pro license in 2020, right, in the midst of the lockdown madness, and I got asked a few years before that to go into the pros as a coach and got approached a few times, but I always said no. I was heavily involved with the amateurs at the time, but I was also kind of still building the club, and it was going well and it was keeping me really, really busy. And also I always said to myself, I'm not going to go into the pros unless I've got a good reason to go into the pros. You know, I'm not just going to sort of start turning over with anyone. It had to be something to kind of excite me a little bit, and that's where Isaac Chamberlain came in. I've kind of known him for a while because he's a Brixton boy, and obviously I've got my gym in Brixton as well. And it's an interesting one because he actually asked me to join his team. Not a lot of people know this. I think around 2018, around that sort of time, and I said no. So like, what didn't happen the first time, and circumstances kind of played out the way they did a couple of years later, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm working with him, he's in my gym, lockdown happens, so we actually did our first session outside in Streatham Common Park, you know, boiling hot day. I remember he brought down a few of his brothers and we did a session, and it literally built from there. It was kind of quite interesting how it all came about, but that's how it came about. And then I didn't have my license at the time. He just come off shoulder stability surgery, because as we know, he dislocated his shoulder a few times throughout his career, most notably in the fight in York Hall against Wally Camacho. We saw what happened there. It was crazy. So he got that sorted, and then his comeback fights on Channel 5 with Mick Hennessy at the time. That's who he signed with in 2020 as well, just coming back from America and not really going anywhere. So Mick got him back on TV, got him back on Channel 5, a few comeback fights, which I wasn't in the corner for. And then license came through, lockdown sort of died down, and then that's where we really started working together. So I think we've been together now since then, so about 4 years. We've had 8 fights together, and you know, I've got to say, I think Mick's done a great job for him in terms of bringing him back and getting people talking about him again, certainly domestically as a cruiserweight. And since that time, you know, we've gone on to we won the IBF international title on Channel 5, headlined against Prasovic. That was kind of his first throwback into the pro scene. And then off the back of that, we got an opportunity to box Chris Smith in Bournemouth.
That was a great fight.
Great fight, got nominated Fight of the Year contender. First time Sky did a show in Bournemouth, you know, and Chris wasn't the world champion at the time, but he was the sort of up and comer, and you see what he's gone on to achieve since. That was a great fight, and you know, I like Chris. I'm glad to see he's doing well. Won the British and Commonwealth titles, boxed for the European title. So we've had quite a ride in the relatively short amount of time we've been together, but it feels like we've been together for about 10 years.
What made Isaac originally choose you to be his coach or gravitate towards you?
Well, originally we were working with myself and another coach, Russell, who we started working together. So he approached Russell, who's a Cuban coach, who's actually based at our gym, great coach, works with our amateur team now, you know, great guy. And that's how it actually started, you know, and then the way things turned out, you know, Russell's still at the club, and I took over sort of as Isaac's main trainer. I've got Connor Ward who assists not just with Isaac but with the rest of the pro stable, and yeah, it naturally just kind of grew that way.
And who else you got in your pro stable?
So we've got another boxer, Ollie Edwards, who's 10-0. He's boxing on the 6th of July in his first step-up fight, which is great for him. Been offered a few kind of opportunities for Ollie because he looks the part, got a good record, he's got a fan-friendly style, and I really believe once he has that breakthrough win, it's going to be at the O2 as well, Indigo O2, on a Nielsen versus TM14 show. So it's a great kind of stage. It's going to be on Talk Sport, like streamed on the 6th of July as well, so people can watch it. And I think the opportunities hopefully will start coming through for Ollie, because I think that's what he deserves. He's good enough to be there, and that's what he needs. But this is a good next sort of step against a guy coming from Holland, winning record, tough as nails, coming to win sharp. So that's going to be a really good fan-friendly fight because they both come to bring it. And then we've got Louis Maldowney, who's 20 years old, joined us at 19, really young kid, but really talented. Only had about 20, 25 amateurs. 4-0 as a pro now, but for this particular camp, he's actually boxing an unbeaten guy on July the 6th. That's the sort of belief we have in Louis. Really progressing at a quick rate. Like his progression this camp, I've been very, very happy with, and it's really exciting to see. He's been doing really well in sparring. He's getting stronger as well. He's growing into his man strength. Still hasn't got it yet.
What weight is he?
He boxed at welterweight. Yeah. So I'm just excited to see kind of his journey. We've got Mohamed Samir, who we've had for a little while, who's 6-0 now, who's looking to get back into it, and a first 6-rounder for him. Those are. Oh, am I missing anyone out? No, yeah, those are the three. I don't think, yeah, those are the three that we look after at the moment.
Season 5 of the Not Just Boxing podcast is proudly sponsored by My Meal Prep. My Meal Prep have made it easy for you to stick to your diet goals as well as eating delicious, tasty, homegrown food. Make sure to use the code NJB20 to get 20% off your first order today. So you're very busy. Do you get a lot of people sort of come in and try and be a part of the stable, and you just haven't got time? Because I'm sure, especially.
Do you know? You do get a lot of messages on Instagram and kind of requests over the months and the years. And when you look back, you think, oh, there's quite a few that's come through. But yeah, you know, the reality is for me, like I'll always find time for the fighters that I want to coach with. You know, my end goal is to continue to see this club flourish first and foremost. Athlete's a special place. It deserves to have good talent walking through in terms of the amateurs, and then we really want to filter down from there, you know. So it starts from a good amateur system, which we've got going. But in terms of pros, you know, we're very realistic, myself and Connor. We don't take on anyone. We don't believe, you know, we believe in working with people that we feel have a future in the sport, and that's the truth. Pro boxing is too hard, it's too long, it's too, you know, it's too difficult to sort of just say yes to everyone, and you've got to be honest with people and say, listen, I don't think it's for you, or do you know what, we're probably not best suited for each other. So if we work with you because we believe in you. We believe that you can get somewhere and you can actually make a career and a livelihood out of the sport. You know, it's not, I don't see pro boxing as necessarily a hobby. You know, amateur boxing is a bit different. So not to say we're strict with it, but we're very selective. So that's why over the years, we've kept a relatively small stable of 4 pros at the moment in total, and that that's the reasons why. Also, in terms of availability and timing, it means that we can give a good amount of time, because we don't do group training. It's like one-to-one training that we like to give all the pros.
What are you looking for in these fighters? What are the standout skills and disciplines and how they act out of the ring? What is it that you're looking for as a coach that appeals to you?
So like, first one is mentality. They've got and it sounds cliche, but the mind's got to be right, and then it works its way down, right? So are they committed? Are they serious? Can they train full time? You'd think full time pro boxers, but not all of them are full time. I can train, 3 days a week, so I still got to work the other 2-3 days, and that's the reality. And I get that, because they're certainly not making a living yet out of the sport of boxing to be able to warrant training full time. So first, they have to tick, there's non-negotiables. Like, we train full time, you're on a full time program, hopefully got some sponsors that can help you with that. You're committed, you're on time, you're coachable, all those are very important, we put at the top. And after that, you've got to have something about you. You've got to have the ability that we look at to think, we can do something with this kid. And I'm not saying that might be everyone's going to be a world champion, but this kid's good enough to go win an area title and push on from there, or definitely British. And so that's what we look at it. We've got quite a sort of strict set of criteria that we believe in and that we follow. And that way it keeps everyone honest. It keeps the gym thriving and buzzing and kind of full of the right people and talent, and they all push each other.
And what's your goals as a coach before you hang up the pads?
Yeah, that might be a long time away. I'm 34 now, so I plan to be in the sport a long time. But a thriving professional stable, and a mixture. I'm not one of them coaches that sort of glory hunting, want all world champions. And no, I want a mixture of, you've got your guys that are going to be at world level one day, You've got Isaac at European level. You've got the domestic guys that are good enough to win British titles. You've got the prospects coming through. So for me, it keeps that variation in your talent, and that's fun. That's healthy for the gym. It's healthy for the stable. It's fun. Everyone's at different levels, but they're all pushing each other to be the best they can be. So yeah, it'll be a thriving stable full of talent, but all at different levels, so we can just continue that process of getting the best out of the athletes and progressing them, being part of that journey.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about, obviously there's a boom nowadays if everyone's got an S&C coach and a nutritionist. Are you quite easygoing and well balanced to communicate and make sure that the boxers have that checklist of everything? Do you have a good working relationship with anyone else they have outside the gym?
Yeah, so we got, I believe in that, sort of new age coaching and way of thinking, but at the same time I believe that your boxing should always be your number one, and everything else works around boxing and complements your boxing. So your S&C program has to tie in with your boxing program. Your nutrition ties in with your sparring days and your rest days, and as long as it's all interlinked, it works. And that's obviously my job to make sure that's the case. So we've got very good relationships with nutritionists. We use Boxing Science, who are, for me, the gold standard of nutrition in the UK, and they work with Isaac and a few of our other fighters. And we know S&C guys that we work closely with as well, like Rory Lynn, who's great, and Ade. And like I said, we tick all those boxes, because it is important that you have all of those elements as part of your training plan, but the key being, like I said, that they're all interlinked, and your boxing is the centerpiece to it.
Definitely. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I really appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate it.
Catch up with you soon.
Enjoyed it. Thank you. Cheers.